And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. And to set things up, this outlook is for Wednesday into Thursday. We start as we go through Tuesday. There's going to be another area of low pressure lifting out of the North Pacific. The one sitting in the central bearing is going to be pulling back toward the southwest and actually crossing the western Aleutians as we go through the Thursday into early Friday. Meanwhile, though, this other low that comes up will have a broader area of precipitation along with some stronger gale force and even lower end storm force winds as it pulls across the Alaska Peninsula in the vicinity of Sand Point Wednesday afternoon and evening. It'll kind of split, one piece going into the southeast bearing and the other just kind of riding northeastward up along the western Gulf. That'll actually induce a secondary low over the Gulf by Friday morning. It's not going to be a very strong one because there's this broader area of precipitation and stronger winds that's going to spread north and eastward across the Gulf and along this area up through Cook Inlet as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. And looking at Wednesday afternoon, we have IFR conditions here over the northern western Gulf associated with the lower cloud ceilings there with the precipitation and gusty winds. Back here to the west, we have IFR conditions along the lower bearing and up toward the central bearing there near and west of St. Matthew. And then we also have some IFR conditions up there along parts of the North Slope and the northwest Chukchi Sea coastline, especially there around Point Lay, Wainwright. For Thursday morning in the far north, IFR conditions are a little more expansive there along parts of the North Slope and the Chukchi Sea and Beaufort Sea coast. We find IFR conditions along much of the northern and western Gulf because, again, there's a broad area of precipitation. It's going to be rain along the coast and in lower elevations, and that's going to be spreading north and eastward through the day. Thursday, meanwhile, widespread IFR conditions, Bristol Bay, north side of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, out through much of the lower half of the Bering. And by Thursday afternoon, we find IFR conditions all over the Gulf from off the Kenai Peninsula to just outside the outer coast there of the Panhandle, with some remaining areas of IFR from the west end of Bristol Bay on out toward the Pribilofs. So past conditions Wednesday are looking VFR up there in the north, especially the east central portion of the Brooks Range at Anatuvik and Adigan Passes. As we drop down toward the lower end here of the Alaska Peninsula and the Alaska Range, rather, we're going to see MVFR conditions generally on Wednesday as moisture increases from the south and southwest. Rainy Pass starts out VFR Wednesday morning, becoming MVFR. Windy Pass should generally hold on to VFR conditions during the daytime there Wednesday, and then further east, Isabel Pass may see a period of MVFR conditions becoming VFR for the afternoon. Same thing, Mentasta Pass, MVFR conditions Wednesday morning giving way to VFR. And right now, much of the Copper River Basin, including Tanita Pass, generally VFR conditions are expected Wednesday. As we get down toward Portage Pass, VFR in the morning becoming MVFR, especially the eastern half of the pass into Prince William Sound. And then in the northern Panhandle at Chilkoot and White, look for VFR conditions Wednesday morning becoming MVFR. In the freezing levels at the surface, we find temperatures above freezing up along the lower Yukon and the entire Kuskokwim Basin. Also some above freezing temperatures in the morning up along Cook Inlet into the lower Mat-Su Valley and then along inland, just inland from the northern Gulf Coast into a good portion of the inner channels there of the Panhandle. But you will see with that area of low pressure starting to lift north eastward, we find ahead of it, there's just this broad frontal zone, and with it, freezing levels rise from above 4,000 feet to 6,000 and 8,000 feet as you get into the North Pacific, south and southeast of the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and the Gulf. Now, where there are thicker clouds and those that are producing precipitation, particularly rain, We find the potential for some moderate icing above 6,000 feet over areas of the Gulf, especially western Gulf across the northern portion of the Alaska Peninsula. That would come later in the day on Wednesday afternoon and evening. But as we go south, as the system just slowly works its way north and northeast, we would find better chance of moderate icing above 8,000 feet lower Gulf and just east of Kodiak Island, and also moderate icing potentially here back toward the central Bering above 4,000 and 6,000 feet as you head toward the Alaska Peninsula. Now, jet stream level winds, there's not anything really impressive in terms of a jet core associated with this feature, though there are some stronger northwesterly winds in western Kansas or western Canada, 90 to 100 knots. And there are core winds above 100 knots well south of the Gulf in the North Pacific. And then as we look at things a little more closely, resolve that at the mid-levels, closer reflection to the surface, there are a couple of low centers. We have a low circulation in the central Bering that's going to be pulling back toward the southwest, toward the western Aleutians. And meanwhile, we have another low piece of energy coming north that'll be crossing the Alaska Peninsula, as I mentioned, in the vicinity there of Sand Point, Nelson Lagoon, that area. And you can see the counterclockwise circulation wind field at mid-levels, 35, 45 knots there into Lower Cook Inlet, the Katmai region. And then certainly as we drop down to 3,000 feet, you can, the stronger low-level wind field is revealed. We have the low in this vicinity here near the central part of the Alaska Peninsula, but pretty strong wind field ahead of this front. Winds out of the southeast to east, upwards of 45 to as high as 65 knots entering Lower Cook Inlet and again around Mount Douglas, Katmai region. So those higher elevations will have high winds there during the day on Wednesday, along with the potential for low-level wind shear and turbulence. And as we expect on Wednesday, the greatest threat for some isolated severe turbulence will be lower portion of Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, Kennedy entrance there to the Katmai region, extending a little further south down along northern areas of the Alaska Peninsula. Surface to 6,000 feet, and back here along Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Bay, and a bit inland from there, Woodtick State Park area, anything surface 4,000 feet, and then trailing out, we still find a pocket of moderate turbulence potential there in the central Aleutians. Surface to 3,000 feet on Wednesday.